Hi, everyone. Good evening and good morning or good afternoon to those who are not in Europe. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this PMF Connect session. I know many of you already know us, but for those who are new, I would like to just briefly tell you about what Product Management Festival is about. So we started back in 2012. And our organization's aim is to amplify the impact that product managers and their supporting organizations have on their careers, teams, products, and the PM profession. We contribute to the development of product managers and help promote the importance of their roles by offering them a variety of resources, data, insights, tools, and activities to empower them to be more successful. PMF believes that supporting product managers in becoming masters of their craft will help ensure the creation of extraordinary products and even redefine the way we perceive these currently. So a little bit about our initiatives, what we do. Every year we publish a trends and benchmarks in a product management report. I encourage you to download this year's edition. It has quite some interesting insights, all drawn from a survey which was taken by more than 2,000 product professionals. We have insights on salaries, on psychological safety in product management, leadership, and many more. Another of our initiative is the Product Management Executive Program with INSEAD. It's for senior product leaders who wish to advance in their career. It's a five-day accelerated program. More on this is on our website. In addition to that, the two conferences in Zurich and Singapore, the one upcoming in November now in Zurich will be a hybrid edition. We also organize local product management nights, which back before COVID were exclusively in person, and now they are exclusively online until we can meet again in person. Executive circles for product leaders, different cities globally, and yearly in Zurich, in Singapore. And of course, the PMF Connect sessions, which you are attending now. A bit about the conference in November on 11 and 12. What you can see now is are actually our 4 keynotes, and below them some of the companies that will have speakers on stage. Like, as I mentioned, it will be a hybrid edition, so online and offline. And I am happy to offer all the attendees a discount code for November's conference. I will send you, of course, a follow-up email with the code and more resources, including the recording. Now, enough about us. I would like to welcome Atul now on the stage, PMF Connect stage. This session will be recorded, and I will provide you with the recording after the session. So don't worry if you have to leave and cannot stay until the end. Enjoy, everyone, and Atul, the stage is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna. That was really good. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I know it's midweek and you all must have had a long Thursday. I'll try to keep it very interesting so that it doesn't get boring at all. So let's kick off. This is essentially sharing my experiences of using product management fundamentals and methodologies in a very large organization like BAT, the one that I'm working right now, and sharing the learnings with you as I apply those fundamentals to move towards a product-focused organization. Great. Before we start, I'd like to do a quick poll. You'll see 4 options on the screen. Could you please choose the option that you identify with the most? Okay. Great, fantastic. So it seems like PMF is still a lot of product managers, which is actually really good. and a lot of people who are interested in the topic. So good to know that. I'll just bring the poll result down. Great. Okay. Um, Moving on. So I'll just giving you a brief background about myself. I'm originally from India. I started working in India as a business analyst after graduating university. Did my bachelor's in IT. Worked for a couple of years, then worked as an analytics and management consultant for a boutique consulting company. And I was working with the FTSE 100 clients here in the UK. Did a lot of projects around end-to-end analytics, building analytics models, and also looking at the business side of things. Got my MBA from University of Warwick in 2014. Worked in strategy for over a year. To be honest, really enjoyed putting all the theoretical MBA learnings into practice, but probably missed the fun of implementation and the challenges that comes with actually getting those strategic bits off the ground. Since then, have been working in product. Um, Started with Zalando in Germany, which I'm sure a lot of you would probably be aware of, is also a big sponsor of PMF. And then came back to the UK in 2018, did a couple of short stints with Skybet and worked with Vodafone for a year, driving a big transformation program. And then now at BAT, I actually have a role where I bring all these aspects together, the entire thing around analytics, strategy, and product management in a data product manager role. Okay, great. So this is something that PMs would probably experience as an outsider, and data people would probably experience on a day-to-day basis. What do we really expect from the data science and the data and analytics team within organizations? Firstly, whenever you actually see any data model or want to do anything related to AI, you straight away all you think of is you jump to getting a data scientist. From an expectation perspective, your stakeholders expect you to provide real-time reporting across all channels, insights that can actually feed their strategy and planning. So they have very data-driven strategies that they can drive the business on. And the third thing is very high-end specific AI and ML models that are always on, working across different products, different categories, different customer segments. But on a constraint side, of course, there's not a lot of budget for us to do that. Clearly, because there is no clearly identified use case, and most importantly, everything is what they need now. There is no prioritization. There is no roadmap in terms of what's first, what can come later, but everything has to happen right now. Now, summarizing these in my context at a very large organization, global organization like BAT, the four key challenges. And if I think of it, it's like building this car when it comes to the pit stop. You only have certain time, and in which starting from the first point, which is prioritization, where you look at which data set do I use, which value do I actually look at, which use case do I work with, or which market do I look at. There are a number of decisions or questions that you need to answer before you can embark on this journey. Then you will look at your resources. What is the budget that you have available? The teams that are ripe or that have the maturity or the capability to be engaged in this kind of an activity, and what time frame are you working with for delivering these AI or any insightful projects. The third thing is choosing with the right tool that actually your customers can use without a lot of training and hand-holding required, and a tool that actually works with the model building, or the tool that actually suffices your need as well. Of course, the budget is something that I would not mention explicitly, but is always there, implied. And then either because we are talking about a high-end AI, I believe there's a lot of scarcity of core talented people who can actually do these things. And that is why we have to rely upon subject matter experts coming from outside, from consulting houses like Deloitte and Accenture, to help us deliver these initiatives. So overall, these are the four key challenges that I face on a regular basis. And I'm sure that you would probably agree with some of these. If not, it'd be good to actually get your view on what you think are your biggest pain points. Now, this would be good for the product managers. Now, you see a lot of problems there, and putting on your product hat, how can you actually bring order and bring some sort of system or calmness into this chaotic environment. So you start with setting up a product vision and a strategy. What do you want to achieve over the next 12 months to 6 months or 18 months down the line, within the team or within the wider business unit that you're working with. You look at the demand. How do you actually look at the demand that is coming from end users? How do you capture the demand, and how do you ensure that you always have that funnel that you work through with, and make sure that nothing gets through the cracks, and you get everything from every stakeholder, both top down and bottom up. I think third thing that then eventually comes down to building roadmaps and prioritization, something that all product managers love and hate as well, because that's the most difficult task. I hate it even more because it's even more difficult to do in a product in a data environment, and I will tell you in a bit why. And I think the last thing is, once you have all of that, you also have to manage the delivery in an agile way while working with a lot of external partners and internal stakeholders. So imagine maintaining a Kanban board or a Scrumban board with 3 different delivery partners and multiple stakeholders split across different geographies. That's the level of complexity we're talking about. So, but as a product manager, you're expected to solve that. And I hope I'm able to add value in this scenario. So now it actually comes down to data products, the core topic of the talk. And I believe this analogy here is very apt. Data products is something which is really nice and useful and can get you where you want to. But without a data strategy and a platform strategy sitting below the data products, it's just like this car without wheels and a steering wheel, that you have this beautiful engine, but you can't really get to where you want to get to. So let's take a step back and let's look at those 2 important things that will enable you to actually embark on this journey of creating or scaling your data products. So this is what I talk about, a holistic analytics strategy, which actually comprises of 3 things. Data strategy is at the heart or at the core of your analytics strategy. It has to be there. If it's not there, then this is something you need to work with your stakeholders to get in place. As a stakeholder, this is something that is going to be very important for you as well. Although you're not directly involved, but this is something that a lot of your products depend on. Secondly, the platform strategy. What is the data lake or the platform or the data warehouse that you have, and how do you use that? And then eventually your data products. Now, clearly, as I mentioned earlier, getting the data strategy right is the #1 priority. So I called out four different things, which are the key drivers of setting a data strategy, a good data strategy that works for large organizations, called out under these 4 areas. Data management. So you need to have a holistic data management process where you look at your external and internal data sources, look at your governance structures around that, and also how does your delivery of data or information means from those data sources. Data architecture is something that allows you to scale your data products and your platform so that every stakeholder that actually taps into your data lake or or the platform that you work with can get whatever they need. So analysts can do insights, business analysts can generate Excels or numbers, decision makers can get PowerPoints or specific numbers or KPI definitions from that. Data governance, I cannot stress this enough. This is one of the most important things. You need to have clearly defined governance around process access control, data collection. If you are working with a lot of external data sources, in my case, we work with a lot of different markets, a lot of different local data sources. So there has to be a very defined process for data collection and ingestion. And then last but not the least, the storage and the cloud and the processing part, which is what most of the people now use, either DevOps or the AWS that's available. Last but not the least, data security. Again, this is something which is very important. A small security issue can actually cost companies millions of pounds in any regulatory or compliance fines. With the GDPR in the picture, with a lot of other rules around data governance and security, I think this is the area that the entire data analytics organization looks up to and wants to get it right. Okay, moving on. I think this is probably one of the very interesting slide. I would like to ask everyone, can you actually think of the analogy that makes this image very relevant to the context that we have here and the things that I just talked about in terms of having a platform? So you can unmute yourself and anyone can talk about it, whatever you think. Anyone?
I would say not enough buy-in.
That's good. Anyone else?
I would say a platform should be reliable.
Fair point. Very good.
Magical thinking doesn't help.
Yeah, that's true as well. Anyone else? Last one. Okay, so the reason why I put it was because there's a big team and there's a big hundreds of people behind the scenes working on creating this amazing platform and all these amazing products. But imagine this person as a stakeholder or as a user who wants to access data, but they can't even get access to one KPI. They can't even get what's my sale for the past 1 year or the trend has been. So this is how it would seem to them. And this is the question that I've actually been asked in the organization. So it's no matter how good a platform you have, if your platform is not accessible to your users, the platform doesn't really exist, to be honest. And this is why this analogy is why I thought I should put it here. And as I call out here, the platform should be the most easily accessible, should be able to ingest all data sources, and should be always on. This is the architectural diagram that I have from the past. We have a lot of data sources that are getting ingested into the central data lake and then moving everything towards the consumer. So consumers means the people who actually consume all these data products. They can access all these data in different ways, be it data as a service, platform as a service, or analytics as a service. But of course, if they can get access to the data, they can use it in whatever way they want, in any way they want to. So that's why the platform strategy is one of the most important things, and that's why a lot of companies are actually spending a lot of money and efforts in getting the platform strategy right. Okay, so now coming back to the data products, but I think there's one more thing that we're missing out, and that is our customers. So since I think 56% of the people here are product managers, and I believe before talking about products, you always say customer first. So understand who your customers are, as in who are the people who actually you're building these products for. Data products are just like your digital products, an e-com product. So you need to understand what your customers really need in terms of what is it that they need. Do they need a dashboard? Do they need a slide? Do they need a summary? Do they need a data set that they can play around with themselves? You need to understand the needs of every customer who interacts with the data products. And most importantly, you need to understand how they interact with your data products. Just to give you an example, if my stakeholder looks at one of the reports every day at 7 a.m. when he wakes up, but my data gets refreshed at 12 o'clock, that's absolutely useless. So I've built this amazing data product. I've spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on it, but the stakeholder, when they access it, they have not seen the latest refresh. They've not looked at the most updated information, and that means I've lost my customer there. I've actually lost the customer's buy-in and the trust there. And you need to understand how your customers actually use your data products. And now finally we can go to talk about data products. Okay, another question. Sorry, I just tried to make this as interactive as possible just to make sure that everyone gets a chance to talk about things. So these are the two definitions of data products that I have picked up. Just wanted to understand from the group here, which one do you resonate with most? Which one appeals to you more? So if you can take a poll. Oh, fantastic. I didn't expect a clean sweep there. No, actually, sorry. 80-20, not bad. Just give it a minute. Still some people. Okay, fair enough, more or less. Right, 70-30 it is. Yep, I get that's. I guess that's about right. So clearly, the second one is actually a more valid one. The first one is very specific to just advanced AI and ML models, and the data products are not just advanced AI and ML or data science, but they are actually anything that actually you can use. A small report that you can generate from for a stakeholder is also a data product. I've done a small mapping of the data products in terms of how you can actually classify them. So this is what I created on a two axes, where on the x-axis, how do I bring this down? Okay, better. On the x-axis, I have the analytics maturity in terms of what you need to do, and on the y-axis, I have the value to the business. So this actually helps you classify your data products on in three categories or buckets. I think this is where a lot of organization, like 70 to 80% of your time and effort would be clearly. But this is where value starts coming in, where you actually start turning data into insightful information, and those gold nuggets that actually come out of it. And then eventually, of course, the advanced AI and analytics models. Again, the Pareto principle applies really well. This 20% would probably give 80% of your overall value that would come out of the entire activity. But you really can't go from zero to AI. You have to actually go through this journey. You have to set the basics right, and then you can actually eventually graduate on this curve. And what I am doing is looking at all my markets, looking at all the teams, and mapping them on their maturity basis that, and then trying to move them from one quadrant to the next, and working with them to build their data products. Now, once you have identified the data products, I think one thing which all product managers do is value attribution, and looking at how you can quantify the value, because that's the most important thing for creating your roadmap. On the right hand side, I've pointed out certain things where you have business impact and operational impact. So if there's a clear direct pound value or the dollar value to the business, any specific campaigns that you're launching using any data products would come here. Any specific products or channels that you've turned around, any churn or retention program that you've done, anything that where you have created KPIs which were impossible to produce. Customer lifetime value, for that matter, is one of the most important looked up to KPI, which is very hard to produce for a lot of businesses and products. And then you also have a lot of operational impact KPI variables, where you look at how many users use it, what is the time that you've saved for the user, is this a unique report that was never there, and this is something quite out of the box, which is going to really help the business a lot on a day-to-day basis. So basis that, I think if you look at the mapping of the three categories, they would essentially fit something like this, where your reporting products would not take a lot of your efforts, and the value would probably be limited, but the value will be incremental and delta. So with more and more users using your data products, the reports or the day-to-day reporting that you produce, or ad hoc reporting that you produce, will keep on generating additional incremental value. And then comes your insights, which are ad hoc analysis, one-off analysis, be it a cohort analysis, or be it looking at your consumption patterns or a customer attribution, or anything like that, is something that takes a little bit of extra effort than basic reporting. But definitely there's a lot of value, because that actually fires off a lot of campaigns, a lot of insights, and a lot of strategies as well. And then eventually your AI and ML models sit right at the top on the right corner, where you actually spend a lot of time building the model, training the model, whatever model you're building. And then clearly there's a defined value that comes by implementing that, whatever use case you're doing, whether it's personalization or clustering or anything else. So once you have all of that, this is a small snapshot of my roadmap, the things that are already in play for a lot of these markets. It took almost 6 months to actually get to a stage where I can bring everything normalized on a common platform, standardizing the different product life cycle that I'm going to talk about next. But bringing everything on one page was something which was quite difficult, and I could achieve this only when I followed the steps that I talked about earlier, specifically classifying the data products and then attributing value. Okay, I think the next and the most probably another important thing is looking at the life cycle of the product. So you can actually, it helps you build roadmaps, roadmaps with smaller, specifically when you look at machine learning models or AI models. Those take time to develop, and there's a process that's involved. And the process that we follow are the most important step in any model development is discovery. But before that, I think the most important thing here to call out here is have a use case based approach. Always ask what is the value, what is the reason why we want to do something. If someone comes and tells me I want to implement, I don't know, text mining, my instant reaction is, why do you want to do that? If someone comes and asks me, I want to look at customer segmentation. Okay, why do you want to do segmentation? So what are you trying to achieve in that? All of that actually comes under discovery. So you look at your discovery, you identify the use cases, look at what technology is needed, which are the teams or the market that those are involved in that, and basis that you progress in your life cycle. And then the next step is actually where you build the MVP, where you do the technical build, but also validate the hypothesis or the assumption that you actually started building your model with. So it should be an MVP, a working solution. So for example, let's case in point segmentation. I build a segmentation for a personalized campaign, looking at how that is going to help my campaign, small MVP, testing it on probably a week-long campaign, see the results and see how that actually fits in with the business. Next step comes embedding that. So extending this example of segmentation. Once I know that I launched a segmentation-based personalized campaigns for a certain market, I can embed that segmentation on an ongoing basis with the business, train the users on how they can actually use the model themselves, make any changes or adapt that model to additional campaigns or additional channels or something else when it comes to personalization or different parts of the customer journey as well. That's something that you do and help kind of make the model more mature and help them generate more value of the existing model that you've built for a smaller MVP. And eventually, it's about building a reusable reusable capability. A model that you build should not just be a one-off model that you've built for a specific use case or an example. You should always look at building reusable components and functions that can be actually used across different platforms. So and across different use cases. So we have something called Feature Store and Insight Lab, where every single feature or every single part of the use case or the model can actually be used by other markets, by other teams, by other products in different contexts. And I think that's where you can actually generate the synergy by building one model and reusing it a number of times. So for example, case in point segmentation, we actually mapped out almost 15 to 16 use cases for segmentation, just one model and 15 to 16 applications of that. So it's all about application and having a use case based approach. Okay, and I think the last, or probably coming on to the delivery side, because all of this is achievable only if you work in Agile, if you work closer to your customers, and if you work closer with your stakeholders. So these are the principles that we follow at BAT. We strictly follow these. So, 100% organize ourselves in Agile. We build the MVP. We always experiment in a very collaborative way. And as you see the last point, always build reusable features instead of building anything from the scratch. So these are the principles that this is not new to any product manager, and I believe this is something that is more difficult when you're working in a data analytics setting, because teams are structured in a different way, and you can start small by creating a Kanban board, by putting things on a sprint, by looking at the amount of work that gets done on that sprint, how your roadmap or your board gets exhausted or gets used up in a sprint, and then work your way forward out of that, how your roadmap looks for the entire half year or quarter or year, based on that 1 or 2 sprints, is something that you'll have to start doing if you want to implement product ways of or thinking in your data analytics team. And I think that with that I end. Is that quite early, Anna? Did I finish
No,
quite?
that's right on time. We have a good time, half an hour for questions. So please take it away. Feel free to either unmute yourself or just drop the questions in the chat.
I have one question. So actually, just on the previous slide, I found it quite interesting that, I mean, you have a slight emphasis on sort of getting it right first time, then sort of just creating an MVP, because very often on the agile setting is that just get something done as long as it's roughly doable. But you're saying that that alone is not necessarily a good approach, if I get it correct.
So the reason why that is there is because if you go back to the previous slide, you're already spending a lot of time in discovery, and you're actually trying to make sure that the use case that you're building is actually valid for the project that you're working towards. And that is why there is more this liver is more towards the getting it right first time, because you spent a fair bit of time on the discovery process. Had the discovery not been there, clearly you would have probably get it done right, MVP, and then maybe learn from it. But because of putting a lot of effort in the discovery process, making sure that the discovery is done right, the process actually works and you get the MVP out.
And I presume that also you having the platform strategy thought out allows you to make a scalable solution from the get-go.
Exactly. So that is always there at the back of our mind when we are building any new product, how that is going to work in the long run. So if I go back to my roadmap and you look at the product, basically all these products have a scale mode where they are rolled out for one market and then they are rolled out for other markets. Essentially, without a platform strategy and the reusability factor there, we'd be building thousands of products for new market every day, every time, and that will be impossible to work with.
Cool, thanks.
I have another question. Great presentation. Thank you very much. My question is about discovery process. You mentioned a few value drivers. Do you verify your assumptions once the product is ready? Do you check that your assumptions, your value assumptions that you made during discovery process are still accurate?
That's a fantastic and a great question. So I think we in the discovery process, what we do is we talk to all the stakeholders involved in the project team, and we look at what their understanding is. Based on that, we create an assumption that or hypothesis rather, that will actually drive the model or the MVP development. Once the MVP is prototyped, we actually have a session where we walk through the stakeholders and the users through the prototype. So there are absolutely no surprises, to make sure that the prototype actually works or is giving results or turns out as the users expected.
Thank you.
Great. Any more questions? It's Quiet House.
I have a question here, Atul. What about like product management, but more for platform or data platforms? There's something I'm joining in recently, and it's quite different than just managing data, especially things coming out from data science teams. It's more about organizing the house around how, or like data governance, more element also here, how to surface the data to multiple teams across the organization, and kind of streamlining the the producer consumer side of things there?
Absolutely. So that's a fantastic question, and I think I'm sorry I can't see who's actually speaking because I just have a static set of names here. But before you asking the question, if you could just tell me your name and what you're doing, that'd be great. So just to answer your question, it's absolutely imperative. We have a big platform team, and they are also organized themselves in this way. Until now, they were not doing agile. They did not have any Kanban board. They worked more on the in waterfall ways of working. So looking at different projects, they do have strategy, how the platform is going to evolve and how that is going to work with the different markets. But then the delivery was not agile, and that's where I worked with them to help them create their board with their entire structure from themes to epics to individual features and how they can actually work on that. So that's something that you will have to drive in a data engineering team. You can also create personas of users who will be interacting with it. This is something I also did. So looking at when I talked about understanding your customers, one thing that I did was to map my customers to individual personas and then work with those personas to see how those personas work with me on the different stages of the life cycle, and that actually helps. So see if that works for you.
Yeah, it could be, but I need to figure out across the organization, because the organization is huge. It's like hundreds of like tens of teams and hundreds of engineers, so it's, yeah, it would be quite an effort to do that. But yeah, thank you.
Absolutely not easy. I completely understand your question and where you're coming from, and I think it's the only thing I can tell you is the change is big, but it can only happen if you take baby steps. So I believe if I look back 6 months or 7 months down the line when I started with BAT, it would have been impossible to think of where we are right now. Everything was in a firefighting mode where we only did things where the stakeholder who shouted the loudest got their things on the top of the agenda. But now it doesn't work that way. And that's how you gradually develop or progress to a stage where you bring not just yourself, your team, but also your stakeholders to a maturity where they work in the new ways of working.
Cool, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, I'm not sure if anyone's there. I can see names though. This is my LinkedIn QR code. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can scan this with your phone. If you have any more questions that you want to share personally, you can ask me personally on LinkedIn as well. So you can definitely feel free to do that. More than happy to help if you have any specific questions around your data products and how, if I can contribute in any way to that.
Perhaps someone can or is willing to share how they do it at their organization. If you don't have a questions, or just feel free to share experiences. We are all here to learn from each other.
I can go next, and this time I'll say my name for you, Atul. So my name is Amr. I'm working at Wayfair in Berlin. So I'm responsible for, currently I've been tasked with being responsible for the data platform for all the supplier data. And it's quite interesting. It's stressful as well, because we have more than 180 tools, something like this, that are being used in the supplier space at Wayfair. And we have to service the data to all these tools. Those are not all of them are external tools used by suppliers, i.e. things that will be built into applications and dashboards, or even API services that will be exposed to tools, but also internal tools used by people who used to query data on SQL, and now they move to another kind of platform to be able to get insights about the supplier performance, and hence making them better, basically. And what we like our data like kind of a strategy for now to get into this, into having multiple lanes of work. The first lane of work is trying to support the current systems, whatever they are. And this is, to be honest, quite a bit of work, because you need to keep the business running. But at the same time, until we build the new infrastructure that we are building and commencing the new architecture of having a very modern, advanced cloud-based data services, we need also to commence the needs of the teams that coming up with new releases till we come up with this thing. So we need to support the old services, and also we need to accommodate the new ones with hopefully not the old way of doing things, and at the same time building the new infrastructure. And we have set up already 3 teams for that. It's quite interesting. It's currently it's kind of experiment. We are taking the leap there and trying to do as much as we can. Even transitioning some of the backend engineers to data engineers and trying to get into things. So this is how currently we are trying to do what we are trying to do at Wayfair, at least.
Great, that's fantastic. And when you talked about that, I was just thinking about how we were doing this at Zalando a few years back. But all I can tell you is that maybe in a couple of years' time, when you've actually set up the basics right, specifically for your vendors and your third parties, I think it'd be a really good place to be in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess it will be like at least 18 months to 2 years time frame before we get any fruitful results that is really changing the whole business. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Amar. Okay. Anyone else wants to share anything? Any feedback?
I have a question actually.
Yeah, sure.
I'll read it out to you. It's from Jan Bugata, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So how do you get buy-in from management to spend more budget on discovery? How do you describe your understanding of product vision, and why is it essential? How much time do you spend on discovery and how much time on delivery?
Okay, let's go one by one. So I think first is getting the buy-in approved by the management. So that is a factor of 2 functions. First is when you have a roadmap of things that you have to do, and then you have the discussion with your individual markets or the teams. You've implemented certain things in some markets. It's very easy to get the buy-in from the management of a regional director to implement the same in their area. When you do not have that, it is difficult, and that's where you need to come up with case studies, or you need to come up with examples of how that particular initiative or use case is going to impact or help their business. And initially there is a bit of hesitation, but I think overall with all this hue and cry around AI and machine learning and data science, I think every senior stakeholder wants to jump on this bandwagon, and no one wants to miss out. So the moment you say you're actually going to help them, all they want to say is what is the value that you bring to the table, and if you can actually connect the initiative to a specific use case. And that is why we adopt a use case based approach. So for example, when I go and talk to one of the stakeholders, I wouldn't say I'm going to do segmentation for you. I can probably say something like, we can help you with personalized campaigns that is going to give you an uplift in so and so, and that we are going to achieve through segmentation. So you've already given them the value that they are going to get out of this entire exercise. Now coming on to the second part, discovery, depends on the type of data product. So for example, if you're building any insight or any basic model like text mining or scraping tool or anything with regards to the social or search, it's not a lot with the stakeholders, but it's more with the technical teams and the data providers and the partners. But when it's something like on-site campaigns or looking at specifically targeting one-on-one messaging for customers, that's where discovery needs to be extensive. So it's not really a time-bound activity, but we try to ensure that we speak to all the key stakeholders involved in the RACI matrix. and make sure that we get the feedback from everyone. Ideally, in my experience, we don't do it for more than 2 to 3 weeks. I think in 2 to 3 weeks time, you have everything that you need, and your output for the discoveries there, how you can progress. But that entire 2 to 3 weeks actually saves you a lot of time during model development and building something, because more importantly, one thing that I've noticed and observed as well, excuse me, a lot of times during discovery, we only look at the people side of things. We don't look at the processes and data side of things as well. So for example, an anecdote I can share is when we were working with Poland, we did discovery for a small project, and then later and during the discovery, we missed out that a certain key point around the data structure differences between the global structures and the local market structure. And that actually came up in the delivery phase, and there was a potential delay that could have happened. But these are the things that discovery helps you uncovering and helps you make sure that you understand what you're going to deliver. So basically visualizing everything that you're going to do in doing a dry run or before you build the MVP, actually understand every detail. So there are no unknown monsters or unknown potholes that can actually take your time during the delivery process. I know that's a long answer, but I hope that answers the question.
Jan, if you're there, you can also unmute yourself. That's awesome. Thank you. Anyone else?
Maybe I can share my experience. Hello, this is Alexandra Stepenko from SAP. I'm responsible for the portfolio of AI-based scenarios in one of our products. And what we do a lot, and that's what I relate to what you've just said, we do a lot about value. So we always start with the value assessment, and we always want to understand who are the personas, who are the key people who are using our software, how do they use it, what are their daily activities, and how can we help them. And what I learned as well is that we should not be religious on technology. If rule-based can do it, then we go for rule-based. If AI can help, then we do AI. So I'm in a little bit different situation here, because we're more like, as I understood, you're doing, let's say, internal product development, and I'm doing rather external.
Yeah.
But value is still essential in all cases.
Of course. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Alexandra. That's really helpful. Great. Do we have anyone else?
If anyone would like to also share a challenge, so day-to-day challenges with data product management, the good and the bad.
I would like to ask a question to the 13% of the people who said they are interested in the topic. I hope that they got something out of it and it was not a complete waste of your time.
All right, shall we give a last chance for questions? And I'm sure Atul will be available if people would like to reach out to you the later stage.
Absolutely. Always.
So, great. If there are no more questions, we can wrap it up. Thank you so much, Atul, for this insightful session. And thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Atul. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
great evening. Bye-bye.